Grand Rising, Grand Rising, everybody. Happy Thursday. I hope you guys are having a great Thursday so far. We have another crazy case, another case where um they have basically dropped the ball when they had the opportunity to save a child and it simply did not happen. But before we get into that, make sure that you guys do remember that we do not have a show tomorrow, as we do have the Royal Lockbox that will be returning officially to Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, you still have time to get your letters in. I'm expecting a nice, fun, relaxing Saturday type of I don't know. This show gives me very much gossip girl, very much girl conversations, real life discussions. So I'm really excited for the show excited for the show to occur. So make sure that you're here at 2 p.m. on Saturday, okay? Definitely dropped the ball on this one. Yes, big time. Hey the real books. Hello there. Hello. Alrighty guys, let's get into the deets of the case. All right. Now, this case is actually coming back into discussion, one, because of how they dropped the ball, two, because the father had just now he just got sentenced, but also because it kind of touches the base of another big issue, such as child abuse, domestic violence, alcoholism, drug abuse, and all of those things that happen on the reservation. Okay. So that's why this case is kind of hitting the medias the way that it is right now. So let's get into it. So this dates back to February the 19th of 2024. Okay, where there was a father. He had called the authorities and he told the authorities that his son was sick. Okay. So February 19th, he called them and told them that his son was not breathing and he needed them to come to the home to assist him. Now, Carter had then, the child whose name is Carter, he was transported to multiple different hospitals. Okay. He started off at the Barrage County Hospital out there in Green Bay, and then he ended up out in Milwaukee because it was so much going on with him that they were trying to basically keep him alive. Okay. Now, the doctors, when they began to examine him, they had noticed that the child had multiple stages of bruising. He had bruises, internal bleeding, as well as some evidence that was there due to blunt force trauma. Okay. That was seen on the child. Now, on February the 24th, unfortunately, Carter had then passed away. Okay. And the medical examiner's office had then deemed his death to be a homicide. And that's where the investigation had begun. Okay. Now, we would not be here if they would have properly managed the father at the age of 18. Okay? Because he left behind a trail of violence. Now, we would say it doesn't mean that he's going to always end up to be this type of person, but there's always red flags in the very beginning where the justice system has an opportunity to step in before we get to points like this. Okay? Now, he wasn't just the normal father where he was really hands on and loving and things of that nature. He had already had issues prior to this child being in his custody. Now, in 2009, he was convicted of sexual abuse towards a minor because it was discovered that he was in a long term relationship with a 14-year-old girl while he was 18 years old. Okay. And him and this girl were having interactions inappropriately. Also, there was some violations of him driving while under the influence. He had a alcohol point of 0.33, and he was arrested for that. And then he was released in 2013, where he began to continue to participate in different assaults towards people, drug abuse, fentanyl use. And then in 2014, he attempted to steal a boat while intoxicated, where he also assaulted someone there. In 2016, a judge had then banished him from the entire place where he was raised at. He was not allowed to even be in that county at all. Okay? He was banished for 9 years. But despite this history of violence and alcoholism and drug abuse and things of that nature, he still proceeded and was able to fight for custody of his son, Carter. Now, Carter's life, it was really, really short. All right. And how he ended up with Carter is how we ended up to this situation. Now, you may ask yourself, how does a person with this type of background even get the opportunity to get custody, sole custody of their child? Well, Carter's birth mother, she had already arranged for him to be adopted because she knew that she could not provide him with the life in which he deserved. Okay. And I know a lot of times we discuss these type of topics where we say, well, why won't you give the child away? Or why won't you, give somebody else the opportunity to raise the child because you don't have the resources or the know how to do so? Well, this mother took that step. So we cannot judge her from this point on because she took the step. She went to the authorities and she told them, I cannot give this child the life he deserves, and I want to give him up to adoption, for adoption, for someone can do what I cannot. Okay. Now, the father, he was totally against it. I don't want my child adopted. I want to take care of my son. Now, because of course he was already identified as the father, they cannot take that right away from him. But you would think because he had already had a violent history that the authorities would look into this to determine that this man is so violent that he's already been banished from a county in which he was born in. Okay? But yet and still, because he put up a fight, they then determined that they still were going to give him sole custody of his son and stop the adoption. Now, they're saying that Carter had endured months of abuse. Now, keep in mind that he wasn't that old, okay? Carter was about 19 months old, okay? So if they're believing that he had been getting abused for months and days, it's likely that the moment that he got Carter, that he already had begun to do the abuse and caused the abuse towards him. Now, it is said that when he insisted on this custody, the prosecutors, they say that Carter had endured this months of neglect, this months of abuse, and their evidence did point directly towards the father, where the bruises, they were in multiple different stages, and they did say that they did see that there was some blood left behind in a pack and play. And they do believe that's where a lot of this abuse possibly went on, or even so, that Carter was forced to remain in this pack and play for long periods of time before, during, and after the abuse. Now, the doctors, they did testify the injuries as well in court. Well, they said that this was not a accidental, trauma type of situation, and that they did see some finger marks for pressure, okay, that was seen on him as if he was being squeezed so hard to where the father had left his fingerprints behind on his skin. It was some redness there. Then they also seen some bruises on his he had some skull fractures as well as some brain swelling as well due to all of the abuse. That lets them know that there was some blunt force trauma. Now, he did attempt to say that he did not do any of this and that Carter had been dealing with some form of respiratory issue, and that's why all of this had occurred. He said he previously was sick already, but he says that he's never abused his child. Now, the prosecution, they say that the father had did whatever he could to prove his innocence, to say, no, I had nothing to do with this. But in fact, he was the only person that was alone with Carter during the time in which he was living with him. No one else was in this home. It was just him and Carter. So the evidence basically went totally against what he said happened. Now, when it comes to the jury, of course, they did say that he was guilty of murder in the first degree of his own son. Now, when it comes to the sentencing, this is where things got a little bit sticky because they feel as though that this man has basically highlighted a bigger issue within the reservations, the Indian reservations, when it comes to child abuse and neglect and things of that nature. Because what they're seeing in the Indian reservations is a rise in child abuse. Along with this rise in child abuse is the rise of drug abuse and alcoholism. Okay. And the resources in which we are offered here, in regular civilization, Lord have mercy, civilization, okay? The resources that we are offered it's really minimal there. They don't get the same thing. Okay? And it's mainly because a lot of their resources is right there where they are. So a lot of our tax dollars and things of that nature, it really doesn't fund the reservations the way that it fund us here. Okay? Us regular ones that are not on the reservation, of course. So what they're starting to see, my cousin's baby mama blocked my cousin and aunt from adopting the baby, and she was in a mental hospital and had that influence. Yes, I'm so tongue tied this morning. And I will say, and I had to explain this to you guys. Thank you to Real Books as well for the super sticker. Um, I will say that I had also experienced this as well, as I did try to adopt my nephew who was a Indian. And I told you guys this before. That's not easy, okay? And I know what made it hard for them to deny him. It wasn't just because he was the father. It was because he was an Indian. So the way that they operated is something like this. When you want to adopt a child that is Indian, okay? If someone from the reservation says that they want the child, they will come before you. And it's because the Indians, they want all of their children, whoever they are, to be with them. And so our government, they respect that. So no matter how much your household may be more healthy, no matter how much you feel as though that you can give this child a better life, if a parent or loved one that is on the reservation wants that child, they're going to get that child, regardless of anything in between. And I think that's the loophole that kind of has this case in the spotlight right now. Because if they would have looked at his history, they would have known that Carter should have never been with him in the first place. When the mother took the responsibility to say, you know what? Yes, I'm this child's mother. And shout out to her for making that decision because it's hard. Yes, I'm this child's mother, but I cannot give this child what he deserves. They went against her judgment in that. And what's more sickening is his charges prior to let us know that he's violent, lets us know that he has flawed judgment, let us know that he has multiple levels of vices from alcohol to fentanyl. And him being a responsible parent was never the case. But because a very tight loophole of him being an Indian made him a suitable parent. But now Carter has lost his life due to this very minimal, very small loophole. Okay? Now the judge in this trial does say that his or her judgment will give justice because they gave him a life without the possibility of parole. Okay? Now, unfortunately, there's going to be more kids that are coming from the reservation that are dealing with this same exact thing. One thing that is on the rise, and I have to continue to say this, is alcoholism. That is something that the Indian reservation cannot seem to defeat. And they have been trying to do so many different things. They have tried to do different programs because what they're starting to discover is alcoholism and drug abuse is not only attacking the adults, it's also attacking their children. Well, there are children as middle school level that are already alcoholics and drug addicts. Okay? Because you got to think about it. The reservation itself compared to us is really small. But you have all these vices within this very small area, which means you have mothers, fathers, aunties, uncles, cousins, and kids that are partaking in these vices. And that leads children to be abused, children to be hurt, parents to be flawed, and things of that nature, with also the very minimal resources on top of it. At some point in time, we have to realize that the system is flawed on both sides. And I think that we are in a stage of the justice system that there needs to be some form of communication between the reservation and us out here. Okay? Because they're starting to come off of the reservation and commit crimes. So let's just be honest. And if these two judicial systems are not in proper communication, it leads for there to be other crimes to be committed, whether it's here with us or on the reservation with them. And it's because these two justice systems are divided. But we're living in a world where social media, where everyone is all together now. We're not living in the world where the Indians stay where the Indians are. We're not living in that world anymore. We're not living in a world where the opportunities and the resources does not need it to be spread across the board, because they do. Because now we have two different communities that are now merging together, but all the crimes are still the same. But because of the laws when it comes to the Indians, I don't see that ever happening. But that's only leaving us to more situations that we're seeing with Carter, because there's more Carters out there. There's more Carters because we know, okay, that with our justice system, the chances of him becoming the sole parent in this situation would have been slim. He would have never been able to get custody unless we're in one of those rare situations where the justice system fails. Okay? And they don't cross their T's and dot their I's and look at his prior history. This is a man who had already been in a relationship with a minor when the child was 14 years old and he was 18. Okay? He had already tried to rob somebody of a boat while intoxicated. He had already assaulted people. The only thing that he can do after that is assault a child or kill someone, and he had did both. He had already been banished. And my thing is this: how was he banished from the county and you guys still gave him the opportunity to come back in the county, to even produce a baby? That's another loophole that you guys missed. He wasn't even supposed to be there at all. He was banished. And you mean to tell me that none of this information was able to be monitored or looked into prior to him even getting custody? Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But blocking adoptions is real. That's a real thing. And then what kills me with this whole blocking adoptions things is that some people, they block adoptions not because they really want to be the child's parent, but more so of a envy, jealousy, or out of spite type of situation. And that's what I think he did. I don't think that he ever wanted Carter. I think that he simply saw it as an out of spite and control type of thing with him. It was never to love and console and be a father to him. It was to get back at the mother. And that happens a lot, whether you're on the Indian reservation or you're not on the Indian reservation. Some people do that in order to spite the person that is not wanting to keep the child, but to give the child up for adoption. And it's crazy and it's strange. And then you have the other side of things where people will do it for monetary gain. And we're seeing that in a lot of situations. But at some point in time, the adoption industry and the adoption has half of things within the justice system needs a new revamp where there is a constant communication between child, parents, possible adoptive parents, and anything in between, i.e. crime, i.e. red flags, i.e. past history, job, things of that nature needs to be digged into before we even get to the adoption standpoint of things. The system is flawed in that. There's no proper communication between crime and adoption. That's what this case tells me. There's no proper communication. There's a flaw somewhere. There's a hole somewhere where people are getting access to kids. And let's just be honest, something also tells me that you guys did not do your proper monitoring of him getting this child, because I guarantee you, if he was drinking, drugging, and doing fentanyl before getting custody of the child, if you would have done your proper investigations and questioning but prior to giving him the child, Carter will still be here. I.e., do you have any drug addictions? I.e., when was your last mental health evaluation? I.e., what were you diagnosed with? I.e., have you ever partaked in any form of hard drugs, and what were they? I.e., have you ever had any form of inappropriate relations with a minor? Any of those questions, and in this prior to the signing of an adoption, if those questions are properly asked and investigated, Carter will still be here. So because you guys, this lets me know that you guys did not take any of those steps. None of them. This is just as bad as you guys doing adoptions and giving children over to those that already have prior charges of pedophilia. That's what this reminds me of. honestly and truly. But this is just one of those cases. And as of right now, y'all, he has been convicted to life in prison, but that right now there is also a federal lawsuit as well. Okay? On a federal level because of how they mismanaged this case. So now they're looking at it to look at possibly new laws, new policies, and things of that nature. That's what this case is taking us to. This case is possibly about to be a hallmark case because of all the missing, all the directions of it. The reservation, that's point one. Adoption in a reservation. Crimes connected to adoption within the reservation. The process of adoption before someone is able to get a child that is an Indian. All those things right now is what they're having to look for and look into due to this case. No monitoring at all. And it's kind of sad. You guys are passing kids over like they're Skittles. Like they're a pack of Skittles of candy, and you're just handing them off to anybody that you can give them to. I get it. Statistics of children needing homes is high. I understand that. But at the end of the day, I prefer to know that a child is safe in the system. Not just in the system, but safe in the system. And these adoption parents and all of this, we are seeing these headlines a bit too much. At some point, you guys have to identify the loophole because somewhere there is one. Well, the wrong people are getting 100% access to children, and they should not be. We're handing kids out like it's candy on Halloween. And it's getting strange and it's getting a little spooky. Kids are not cattle. They're not horses in a race. We're not trying to see how far can a kid go through living in messed up households and running through a race of life. That's not what kids are here for. It should be looked in more thoroughly. These type of things should not be something that we continuously see when we pay tax dollars for the proper monitoring of children within the system. I get it. Y'all need more professionals in the system. But if you ask me, I think that the professionals that are in the systems, the good ones, are kind of tired of the system itself. It's getting to the point where I'm starting to question, is it the professionals that's working the fields, or is it the system that they're forced to follow? That's what I'm starting to question. Because I see cases where, the people and the professionals in the field would notate the things that makes a red flag or danger, but it's the system itself that don't stand on business on that danger to ensure that the processes after that is proper. I.e., well, let's give him another chance. Yes, he's drove drunk and he was drove drunk and tried to steal a boat and even dated a minor. Yes, he's assaulted someone. Yes, he's done all of this, but let's hand him a 19-month-old child whose mother doesn't want to take care of the child because she's incapable of doing so. So let's give it to the drug addicted, violent father. That seems to be a better option versus a parent of someone who doesn't know the child but solely wants to take care of the child and love the child as their own. But I get it. You guys are standing on the business of, you guys are wanting to keep children with their parents by any means necessary. And I need you guys to understand that not all parents are good parents, and some children needs to be left without them. Let's face the real music. The real music is not all parents are good. And yes, I know all parents make mistakes, but not all parents make the mistakes in which we're seeing, i.e., beating your children to a pulp and leaving them in a pack and play until they're bleeding and unable to breathe on their own. Those are not mistakes of loving parents. Loving parents don't make those type of mistakes. But I know, I get it. You guys' focus is keeping kids with the parents. So when you seen him wanting to get his child, okay, let's put him with his father. His father, can take care of him. Yeah, but his father is trash. Call him for what he is. He's trash. He produced a child, he cannot raise one. Let's move on from this whole children are meant to be with their parents, and let's, try to fix the parent first. No, we don't have time for that. We no longer have time to fix the parent. I'm one who I cover these cases every day, and I'm going to tell you what my thought process is in society. And I'm very vocal about my thought process. I don't like adults. That's my thought process in society today. I'm not here for adults. When I come and do these shows every day, it's not for the adults. It's for me to speak to the adults in order to better help them understand their children and raise them. That's what I'm here for. I'm the voice of kids that cannot say the things that I can say. Why? Because I've walked in those little feet. I've walked in those little shoes. From the bad side of having a bad parent that didn't have the tools to raise me, to trying to figure out life as a kid without proper parenting. I am not here for the adults. Yes, adults watch me. But when I speak, it's not for me to help the adults. I'm done helping adults. That's where I'm at right now. Okay? I am done helping the adults. I have no more excuses in me. I have no more, maybe, he just needed a little therapy and it can help him. No. Maybe we need to take his kid and give his kid to someone who can give this child stability and a healthy, happy life. There's so many great people in this world who cannot have children, who would give this child the life in which they would love. I no longer have interest in trying to build adults. It's all about protecting children for me at this point in society. I don't have excuses in me anymore. I just don't. And I wish that the justice system would get to that point as well. Just like I'm one that believes that in order to save a child, you have to start early. And sometimes that early is having to go around their parents. If we save the children, we save adults. Why? Because those children will become adults later. But because you guys are focused on healing and helping adults that has no fix, it's leaving us to where we are now. Because you guys are forgetting the children. You're forgetting the future children, which means we're dealing with a generational path here. We have adults that the system is focused on entirely. Let's give them chance after chance after chance. But as these chances are being given, these children are being faced with trauma after trauma after trauma due to these unhealed, unfixable parents. And then that's what those children turn into. Unfixable parents. Because you guys have continuously overlooked the need of the child because you're focused on the need of the adult. Yes, he thought he needed his son. Yes, he did. He thought he needed his son. He wanted to protect his son. Yes, the system says that the child is more safer with the parent, things of that nature. The child will have a more healthier life with the parent. But here we are. Here we are. And it's because the system was focused on what he needed, which was his child. So that's why I need society to focus on the youth. Don't focus on these adults that their trauma has been with them for 30, 40, 50 years. And they're still refusing to create change in their lives. They're refusing to get help. They go to jail, they get out. They go to jail, they get out. They're offered therapies. They're offered intervention. They're offered resources. They're offered this. They're offered funding. They're offered housing. They're offered everything they're offered, and they don't do nothing with it. Nothing. Meanwhile, you have children that are in these households of these unhealed, trauma-filled adults who are literally receiving the same trauma in which their parents refuse to heal from. And now we're back at it again. 20 years later, here we are. Same parents to those generations of kids who have constantly been ignored for the benefit of adults. I have no longer have any interest in healing adults. And I am a child, and I am speaking from a person that has been abused physically, emotionally, sexually. Coming from the low income family, my mother was 16, 17 years old when she had me, raised by my grandmother. Been to juvenile detention centers, fought, did drugs. Every statistic that society has set, I have defeated. And I stand here today saying, if you want out of what you're living in, there's a way to do it. And it's simply a perception change, a lifestyle change, and accepting that whatever happened to you then does not control your life right now today. That way, when you raise your children, you're raising children that are better than you. My daughter is better than me, and I stand here today and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with knowing that my child is better than me. She will forever be better than me, ever. And I'm fine with that. Why? Because I had to go through something to get through something in order to gather the life skills in which I needed to ensure that my daughter never faces the trauma in which I did. And that's how I walk through life. I don't give adults no excuses. None. And that's how I need the justice system to do it as well. He's a bad seed, and it's just that simple. It's okay. Whatever I have to do to ensure that my child or these children are safe is what I'm going to do. And that's how I need them to think. I no longer have room for adults that refuses to accept change. I just can't. Like I just talked to my mom just yesterday about this same exact thing. I'm like, people are upset about violence being cleaned up. There's people that are walking through the world that are pissed off. And I'm from DC. And everybody knows what Trump is doing in DC right now. He's cleaning it up. People are mad about that right now. And I had to say to my mom, I said, so are we mad because he's cleaning up drugs and violence? I know we may not agree with everything, but are we really sitting here arguing because he is cleaning up drugs and violence in our inner cities? In inner cities, when kids are being killed, kids are doing drugs, kids are being murdered, kids are murdering. The juvenile statistics of crime is going through the roof. There are more child murderers right now today than ever in history. And it's because the justice system are focusing on the adults and not the kids. And these same children will be 20, 30, 40 years and creating the same problems in which we're talking about right here today. Focus on the kids. That's what I want from the justice system. Focus on the children. I have no excuses for adults. I really don't. I have none for you. I have none. When I say I have none for you, people always say like, you so harsh and you so hard on adults. Yeah, because you're an adult. You're not a kid. I'm visiting DC next month. Quick in and out. Yes, I'm from DC. I make it quick in, and I don't tell nobody when I'm coming, and I don't tell nobody when I'm leaving. I go in and I leave out. I know my city. I know my city. And you know what everybody is saying in the city? These kids in DC, they're doing the most. It's kids, y'all. It's not even the adults, it's the kids. But the system is focused on the adults. When our children have already begun to set the tone for the next generation of crime and statistics. They've already said it. There's children going to jail for murder more than ever before right now, while we're focusing on overgrown adults. This man was 18 years old and has been a criminal since 18. He should have been in jail a long time ago. And I'm talking 20, 30 years. Sit him down. Simple. If you and please don't argue the whole. Please don't argue the whole. Well, what about our prisons will be overcrowded. Think about it like this. Life ain't nothing but numbers. If we're arresting everybody, you're arresting the right people. You're arresting the right people. You're not just arresting people. You're arresting the right people. If you guys focus on the crimes of juveniles in which they are committing, the incarceration rate of adults will go down. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Focus on the crime of kids. The incarceration rate of adults will be lower simply because these children are getting the proper resources at an early age. And anybody that studies psychology, medical field, criminal justice, okay, then you know that if you reach a child at the earliest age as possible to heal them of whatever trauma they have, they're more likely to walk in a better direction of life. And that's from many tests in psychology and all of that. So why are we focused on adults? That doesn't make sense to me. It makes absolutely, positively no sense at all. He should have never had a kid. Never had a kid in his custody. Well, that's that, okay? Now, this is not going to be a follow-up case, of course, unless a law or something comes out of this. Because, of course, he has been convicted on this life or in jail, okay? Should have been in there a long time ago. But that's that, all right? Now, make sure that you guys do stay tuned for all of the shows that will be coming up next week. I think I do have a couple updates on other cases that we have done in the past as well. Do not forget, though, we still have Madeline Soto's case and trial coming up, Naziah Harris trial coming up, Kimani case is coming up. We have a lot of cases that are big cases that we have followed through, and their trials are going to be starting very soon. So make sure that you guys do stay posted to all of that, okay? If it's any stories that you do want me to cover, make a post in the group and I will look into the case, okay? I am still going through last week's suggestions. So last week's suggestions possibly will be on this week that is coming up. Don't forget 2 p.m. on Saturday is the Royal Lockbox, okay? 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday. This Saturday coming up. All right? Be here. We got about 2 or 3 different letters, and I'm excited. And I'll see you guys then. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for watching True Crime with Savage Royalty.